Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again in the Church History Trail. And we're continuing looking at the wee booklets. And this wee booklet here is by the DUP, who was the DUP politician, I think he still is, Nelson McCausland. And that wee book is on Patrick, the Apostle of Ulster. And that's a Protestant view of Patrick. And that's a good wee book too. I enjoyed that wee book by Nelson. And then this wee book here, and it's called The Great Revival in Ireland, 1859. And it's actually an account by the Reverend Samuel J. Moore, who was part of the revival. And it was when God moved. It started at Kells and it spread throughout Ulster. Now, this isn't an original book of the account, I have to say. I wish it was, but it's not. This is actually by the Reverend Stanley Barnes in October 1986, and it's reprinted. But Stanley Barnes was actually the minister of the Free Presbyterian Church at Hillsborough in County Down. And so that's the Great Revival in Ireland, 1859, by the Reverend Stanley Barnes. The account of the Reverend Samuel J. Moore, who that's his account that actually is in the wee booklet. And then this wee book here, this is a wee book I got down in Drogheda, and it's called The Battle of Julianstown, and it's the Siege of Drogheda, and it's by Brendan Matthews. And it's a wee book that I got down south when I was down in Drogheda on the 1641 rebellion. And Brendan Matthews is actually a local author, if I remember rightly, who's from Drogheda. And so that's his wee book. And then this wee book here is Aughrim, The Last Battle, and it's by Cecil, or the late Cecil Kirkpatrick. He's deceased now. But that was the last battle of the Williamite Wars. And it was the most bloodiest battle of the whole campaign. And you can see the horsemen there and the infantry. And that's a good wee photograph, or a good wee painting. And then this one here is The Diamond in its historical setting, again by Cecil Kirkpatrick. And it's about Dan Winter's cottage at the Diamond's Crossroads. If you remember the Battle of the Diamond in 1775, I think it was, if I remember rightly. And so that's what that wee booklet there is about. And then this wee booklet here is by Arthur W. Pink, and it's The Law and the Saint. So he's dealing with the law, the saint's relationship to, or the saint's relationship to the law, and that's by Arthur W. Pink. And there's the rainbow, the sign of the covenant, that God wouldn't destroy the world with a flood anymore. And then this man here, believe it or believe it not, was actually a famous cricketer in his day. This is C.T. Studd, and it was C.T. Studd who wrote The Chocolate Soldier. And C.T. Studd, as I say, he was a fantastic cricketer. He was a famous cricketer and a very good cricketer. And he played in the original Ashes in 1882 against Australia. And of course, England lost, and England was the famous cricketing nation up to then. And England lost to Australia. And it was, so what happened was then, that was really where England started to lose their grip on cricket. And it was said that the England cricket, as far as cricket went anyway, was an Ashes, and that it was going to be cremated. It was going to be cremated and sent back to Australia. And so that was really the downfall from there on inwards of the England cricket team. But C.T. Studd was a fantastic cricketer, and he got converted, and he was due to inherit £2 million on his 25th birthday. And here's what he said: "If Jesus Christ be God and died for me, then no sacrifice can be too great for me to make for him." So what did he do with that money? He gave it to the Bristol Orphan Care, and he also gave it to missions to the poor, and he also helped the founding of Moody Bible Institute with it. And so that was C.T. Studd. And he was a great cricketer, but he was an even better servant of the Lord. And then this wee man here, this is James Renwick, and he was a Covenanter. And he was actually executed on the scaffold. As you can see, he's gone up to his death, and he was hung on the scaffold. So he was hung in Edinburgh in 1688, and he was only aged 26, and so he was hung for his covenanting faith in Jesus. And then this next wee book here is The Christian Warrior King, and it's Alfred the King of the West Saxons, 871 AD to 899 AD, and he influenced the nation, the English nation, a lot through Christianity, and he also was used in defeating the Danes, because it was Alfred who stopped their intrusion, and so he went down in England as a famous king. And so that's Alfred the Great. And then this man here is John Wycliffe. And that's not actually with the I don't know why he used that photograph, because that's that's Calvin and Bezer and Knox and them, the Geneva Monument. So that's not actually the Wycliffe Monument that he's used there. So I don't know why he's used that photograph for that wee booklet, but he has. And the wee booklet's on John Wycliffe, who of course was an English reformer in the 14th century. And then this wee booklet here is The Flight of the Huguenots. That was the persecution in France. And you can see refugees in the wood. And so they're trying to flee from France from the persecution. Of course, if they're caught, they could be executed. And then this one here, this is another Huguenot. And this is the tragedy of St. Bartholomew's Day, whenever there was the massacre. And that's the death of Coligny. And he was the admiral, and he was a Huguenot. And so that's a wee booklet on that. Now, what I want to show you next is this collection here. It's some collection that I have, and I enjoy these as well, reading these, I have to say. What we have here is, this is Rose Publications, and they touch near on every topic, and I haven't got them all. There's more than I have here, but I've got enough to do me. And that one there is Understanding the Book of Revelation. It deals with the different interpretations of Revelation, futurism, historicism, preterism, and whatnot. And then that one's the statue of the book of Daniel, and the interpretation of Daniel chapter 2. And that one there is 4 views of the end times. So you have premillennialism, postmillennialism, and amillennialism. Premillennialism and as in historic premillennialism, and also in dispensational premillennialism. So you've got 4 views there as well. And then this one here is the Reformation timeline, and it's very good because it gives you the whole history in a timeline. And this one here is how we got the Bible. And then this one here is another timeline, only instead of just a Reformation timeline, this is a Christian history timeline, which is good as well. And that's the creeds and heresies then and now. This one here is a good wee one too. It's the Armour of God. And good teaching in that one there as well. And I enjoy these wee booklets, and also enjoy the teaching. And I would recommend these wee booklets to it's not only a new believer, but also seasoned believers, because they certainly do give you good teaching. And they're orthodox in their beliefs. They're not heretical in their beliefs. They're not heterodox. So I would recommend them. That's Baptism, and that's Evidence for the Resurrection. So these are all from a Christian perspective. The Tabernacle, which was the tent in the wilderness, and then they progressed to the temple. Solomon built the temple, the son of King David. And then this one here, it deals with the cults of Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnessism, as you can see. And also it deals with Seventh-day Adventism, and also deals there with Islam and Christianity, and shows the differences between the two. And so that's the Rose publication. And again, as I say, I would recommend them. You'll learn a lot from those, so you will. Now, this here is another wee series that I have, and it's by J.R. Broome. And these are a great wee series too. This is William Tyndale. And of course, William Tyndale was burnt at the stake for translating the Bible into English, because it was illegal in England then. And he was burnt at the stake in 1536. And then this one here is Bishop Thomas Cranmer. And again, he was put to death for his Reformation faith. Only he was burned in Oxford. And he was burned in 1556. He was actually the bishop to Henry for a short while, Henry VIII. And then these are the Marian martyrs, Ridley and Latimer, and Hooper and Bradford. And these were all burnt under Mary's reign in Mary Tudor, that is, Henry's daughter. These were all burnt in 1555 during Mary's reign. Mary was known as Bloody Mary because there was that many people put to death during her reign. And then this one here is the Geneva Exiles. It deals with John Knox and those that had to flee to Geneva because of the persecution in England. And so they're great wee books as well. And then this wee book here, this wee book is actually, I got this in Wittenberg, and it's a wee book. You can get them in different languages, so you can get them in German, or that's why it's got the wee flag there. And whatever flag's on it, that's the language that it is. So I got the English one. And it's Martin Luther, 1483 to 1546. Monk, preacher, and reformer. And so that's a great wee book as well. I enjoyed that wee book as well on the reformer Martin Luther. And then this wee book here, this wee book is Stones and Bones. And it's a wee creation book. And it's an old one, as you can see. It's by Carl Weiland. And I'll try and get the date. I think the date might be actually inside it, if I remember rightly, for this wee booklet. Let me see. Yes, 1997. This was printed. Again, 1997 doesn't seem... Back then, it didn't seem all that... Well, I didn't seem old, but now, my goodness, it seems like light years away. Time certainly does fly, doesn't it? And then these two wee booklets here are by Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones. And that's The Cross, The Vindication of God. And the next wee booklet by Martin Lloyd-Jones is The Man and His Books. And it's Frederick and Elizabeth Catherwood who actually produced this, but it's about the good doctor himself. And you can see him at his studies. And then this wee book, this is another Reformation book. This wee book is the Reformers, Zwingli, who's at the top there, and Calvin. And John Calvin, of course, at the bottom there, he was actually French, from France, but he done a great work in Geneva. And so that's Calvin. And then you've heard of the Calvin's Institutes and Calvinism. So that's the man that they're named after. And then that's Ulrich Zwingli. And he was killed in battle. So he was a chaplain. Now this wee booklet here, Why Doesn't God Intervene? That was actually printed during World War II. So that's a fantastic wee booklet. And that goes back to World War II. Because a lot of people were asking, why doesn't God stop Hitler? And so that's when that wee book there was printed. Why doesn't God intervene? And he comforts the hearts of God's people through this wee trek. And so that's a good wee booklet as well. And then this wee series that I have is, again, the Answers in Genesis wee booklet. If you remember the old wee booklets that they used to produce, I don't think they produce them now. But they're all by Ken Ham, except this one here, which is by Dr. Jason Lisle, as you can see. Big problems with the Big Bang. And I've thoroughly enjoyed these wee booklets as well. And that one there is, Where Did the Races Come From? 6 Days or Millions of Years. And that one is, Was There Really a Noah's Ark and Flood? From creation to Bethlehem. There's one on the dinosaurs. What really happened to the dinosaurs? He's actually got that in book form, so he has as well. I have it as well. There's one there. Is there really a God? And where did Cain get his wife? And you can see they're all by Ken Ham except the last one. And the last wee series that I want to show you is this series here. And this is actually my wee collection from, if you remember, the radio Bible class. And so that's my wee collection from the radio Bible class. And if you remember, these were printed. And they're fantastic wee booklets. The founder was actually Dr. M.R.D. Hahn, and he founded the radio Bible class in 1938. But it was originally called the Detroit Bible class. And he went on to, he was on the radio, and he preached and gave Bible teaching on the radio. But they also produced these booklets, and I have a queer collection of them, I have to say. And they're good. They're very enjoyable, and you learn from these wee booklets. I'll have a wee look at some of them for you. What will make my marriage work? That's a good one. How can I know what God wants me to do? And then there's how do you live the Christian life? Christian living, the plan. Let me see, what else? There's the resurrection of Christ. How can I know there's a God? Believe God is faithful. And there's how can the family survive? How to be a healthy Christian. And how can I feel good about myself? There's the child in me. The silent majority. What else have we got here? Let me see. There's Israel, the apple of God's eye. Of course, they were very dispensational. How can I be filled with the Holy Spirit? They were also cessational in the sense that they didn't believe that the gifts continue to operate for today. Why did Christ have to die? What does Christ tell us about God? And of course, Jesus is God himself. There's a good one there for pastors. Developing the art of gracious disagreement. Surviving church conflicts. In other words, you can see them all around the table there. The elders and the pastor with their boxing gloves on. That would be a good one now for pastors if you can get your hands on it. Remembering the Lord, that's the Lord's table. There's Jesus, the friend of sinners, and of course he is the friend of sinners. And even the religious people ask, why does he eat with publicans and prostitutes? And that's because he came to save the lost. But the religious men wouldn't have him. Where do we go from here? Good question. There's one there, tracking the future. What can we know about the second coming? There's one there, a good one. When fear seems overwhelming, finding courage and hope. And there's healthy, wealthy, and wise. And what else have we got? Lord, teach us to pray. And there's the unpardonable sin as well. And so there's quite a lot there. Eternal destinations, there's another one. But there's one more I want to mention to you. And it's this one here. Not properly part of the Radio Bible class, but it is by the founder's son, Richard W. D. Hahn. And it's this wee booklet here. It is finished. And so he produced this one. He actually took over from his dad. Whenever his dad retired or passed on, he took over. And that's Richard W. D. Hahn. That's the only one I have of Richard W. D. Hahn. And it is finished. And so I hope you've enjoyed the booklets, because I certainly enjoy reading them. And if you like the channel, please like and subscribe. God bless.